Okay, what I want us to look at real quick is how to multiply a fraction times a fraction. So we've already multiplied fractions times whole numbers a good bit, and a fraction times a fraction just really follows from that. And so the problem we're going to do is going to be 3/4 times 1/2. Now you may already know that we can multiply the numerators and the denominators, but I want to talk about why. And so one way to realize this is we can think of this as being, well, we know a fraction of a number is the same thing as multiplying times a fraction. So we could actually say, well, what is 1/2 of 3/4? And this way of thinking is going to make us understand why we follow the procedures we do. And so here's what I want us to do, and I want you to do this on your paper, and we'll do it with some patty paper in class. I want you to go ahead and draw a square. You could also use, if you're at home, you could use a Post-it note, and that could be your square. And then what I want us to do is I want us to actually divide it into fourths. And let's make our lines go the same way. It's very helpful when we draw fraction multiplication to put our lines the same way. And if it's 3/4, then I'm going to shade 3 of the 4. And so 3/4 of my square is pink. And you can pause the video, make your own square, color 3 of the 4, and then you can start the video back and we'll look at how to find half of this. Okay, so I hope you've made that. And so here's what I want us to look at now, is if I wanted to find half of 3/4, then, well, the most obvious thing to do would be to cut it in half. And so now each side, the pink's been divided in half, and I'm going to actually stripe the other direction now to show you. I'm going to stripe half of it. Oh, by the way, while I'm doing this, think about this. I no longer have fourths, but what do I have? Well, I don't have fourths, I have eighths, right? And how do I know I have eighths? Well, I had it in 4 pieces, and then I cut it in half. And we should actually recognize that as being 4 times 2. And so one of the things I see is, well, the answer to this is going to be eighths, because it's now in 8 pieces. And the question is, how many are shaded in blue? Because that's half of 3/4, and the answer is 3. And one of the things you'll recognize is that if I multiply the numerators, I get 3, and if I multiply the denominators, I get 8. And we're going to find that that always works. And so the picture is to show us why. We can always look at it as a fraction of a fraction. But the simple strategy is if I multiply the numerators and I multiply the denominators, I always get my fraction. And so it's really that easy. Now sometimes the multiplication and the simplification may get a little more complicated. So let's practice one that needs some simplifying. So the problem I'm going to give you is 9/10 times 5/12. Go ahead and write that down. I want you to notice that this would be kind of a complicated one to do on patty paper or a Post-it note or draw a square. 5/12 of 9/10, because what you'd have to do, you'd have to draw, is make a square that was 12 one way and you'd shade 5, and then 10 the other way and you'd shade 9, and it would get pretty complicated. And so some of you are already looking and saying, well, you know what I could do? I could do 9 times 5, and I would get 45. And then I could do 10 times 12 and get 120. And 45 1/20th is right, but then we have to simplify it. And that's kind of a pain to simplify, especially if your factors don't come quick. And so one of the things I want us to look at, it's something that we did when we were doing fraction times a whole number, is I want you to look at how we can do cross simplification. Okay, and so here's something I recognize. I recognize that the numerator is going to have 9 times 5, and my denominator is going to have 10 times 12. And I could even flip the order. I could actually say, well, isn't 9 times 5? And I could say, so put it over 12 times 10. I don't need to do all this, but this is going to show you why. Because isn't 12 times 10 and 10 times 12 the same thing? And if it is, what I recognize is I've got 9/12 over here, which we know is 3/4, and I've got 5/10 over here, which I recognize as 1/2. I could simplify these before. Now, in fact, the way I generally do it will be to use cross simplification. And cross simplification is really not complicated. All you have to do is you find numbers in the numerator and the denominator that have a common factor. It's a lot easier if I actually write the correct numbers. There we go. And so I find that 9 and 12 have a common factor. What is their common factor? Well, it's 3. And so I can divide both by 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. And then I also see that 5 and 10 have common factors. 5 divided by 5 is 1. And 10 divided by 5 is 2. And so then I do 3 times 1 and I get 3. And do 2 times 4 and I get 8. And 3/8 is my correct answer. Now earlier we got 45 over 120 just to show you that those are the same. Those numbers can both be divided by 15. How do I know 15? Well, we divided by 3 and by 5, and 3 times 5 is 15. 45 divided by 15 is 3. 15, 30, 45, right? 120 divided by 15, if you don't have that one, if you're not able to do that one in your head, probably a lot of you aren't, it's 8. And so we also get 3/8, but the cross simplification is a lot easier, and if you'll practice cross simplification, it'll really help you going forward. As problems get more and more complex, cross simplification can really help make a lot of problems easier, and if you're good at it, you'll make a lot less mistakes too.